I want to tell how it all began. We lived peaceful, ordinary lives, raising our children, working, building our future. Then came the morning of February 24th, 2022, a morning no one believed could ever come. We thought Russia was merely conducting military exercises, that no real attack would follow. There were even official statements claiming the drills were ending and the troops were returning to their bases. But it was a lie. At 5 a.m., the strikes began on Kiev, on the airfield, on Borispil. We took our cameras and started recording. Every blast, every fire, every scar left on the city, so the world could see what fascism looks like in its modern Russian form. When the Kiev region was deoccupied, the first to be liberated, we went there at once. What we found was beyond imagination. Those were the first unmistakable signs of the atrocities we would keep documenting again and again. I could never have believed that people were capable of such things. That was when the idea took shape, to record every act of Russian aggression so the world would know the truth. Only a small part of what we captured made it into the film. Had we used it all, it would have become a full dramatic series about a war that, even after 4 years, still hasn't ended.
We are now standing on the grounds of the village community hall. This is what it looks like after the so-called special operation by the Russian Federation. An operation to liberate us, though no one here knows from whom. Today we thank the armed forces of Ukraine for protecting us and preventing the occupiers from completely destroying this village. Our biggest problem now is the destroyed homes. 44 families have lost their houses. People who lived here their entire lives. In Vishnyaki, we had a 2-story building where 8 families lived, families with children. Now that building is completely uninhabitable. 3 months of summer have already passed. Autumn is here, and we still have to decide where these people will live and what their future will be.
My name is Lyubov. I live in the village of Vishnyaki, in what used to be Borodyanka district, now Bucha district. This is the house where we lived. 8 families lived here until we were hit from the air. This is all that's left of it.
When did this happen?
It happened on March 9th at 5 in the morning. Everyone was asleep. Everyone was home. No one was hiding. No one was expecting anything to happen so early.
Were you here with your children? With your whole family?
Yes, I have 2 children, 17 and 18 years old. My mother lived next door, my brother and his son too. Our cousins were staying with us. We all stayed close together. Everyone was lying here. Everyone was asleep. All the apartments were occupied. 9 people were in the building that night. Well, as you can see, There's nowhere to return to. We came back, and this is what we found. Now we live with strangers who took us in for a short time. What happens next? We don't know.
And so, the apartment buildings were destroyed. Kindergartens, schools as well. There were bodies lying in the streets. You could see they were ordinary people. A woman on a bicycle, a man with a shopping bag, on his way for groceries. All these horrors. No human being could do this. Even now, I believe, only beasts could. This is what the so-called Russian world truly revealed itself to be.
My name is Katerina Yurkovets. I live in Zahaltsi village. This was my home. When the war began on February 24th, we were at home. One of my daughters lived in Makariv, the other in Kiev. They came here. They were afraid Kiev would be bombed. So we all stayed together with the children and my two granddaughters. Soon Bucha and Borodyanka were under fire. We thought maybe the shells would pass us by, but they didn't. I told my daughter, "Go. You're young. Take the girls and run. We're old. We'll stay." On March 7th, it was my birthday. That night was strangely quiet. In the morning, I knelt to pray and thank God that I could finally take off my boots. We had been sleeping in them for days. And then I heard it. One shell, then another. The second hit the kindergarten where people from Borodyanka were sheltering. It was 5 in the morning. My husband has asthma and had a minor stroke. I said, "Mikola, get out of the house so I don't have to pull you from the rubble." I grabbed our documents and ran. I didn't even know where. The next day, on March 8th, I said to my husband, "Let's go." But he refused. "Maybe it'll pass us by." And that's how we lived. Bombed every day, running and hiding every day. Sometimes in the kindergarten, sometimes in a 2-story house, sometimes with neighbors whose walls were strong. By March 17th, I said, "That's it, we're leaving." The Russians had come already. They even shot at us as we drove away. I shouted, "What do you want from us? We're old people. Why us?" On March 18th, our house, the home we had lived in for 30 years, was gone.
Hello, my name is Valentine. I'm 20 years old. Been volunteering for a month now. At first, we delivered humanitarian aid to Irpin and Bucha, back when the Russian troops were still near Kiev, bringing supplies to people who needed help. Later, we started rescuing animals, dogs, cats, abandoned or injured by the explosions. We drove through the towns around Kiev, answering rescue calls. Today is my first day clearing the rubble. I just help where I can.
What organization is this?
It's called Dobrobat. We clear areas based on requests, mostly private homes and yards. The guys said that last week they were in Hostomel, clearing the university there from the rubble too.
The horrors they brought, even the Nazis didn't do such things. To call them human would be an insult to the word. They're beasts, and even beasts have more decency. I don't know where they came from or where Putin found them.
Were they in your house?
They lived in my house all through the occupation, as long as the village of Zahaltsi was under their control. Everything inside was turned upside down. Everything they could take, they took. All my clothes were gone. They changed into them, left a pile of their military rags, and took mine. Jackets, shirts, underwear, socks, even my wife's things. As for household tools, not a bolt or a screw left. They stripped everything clean, and some things they just threw out for no reason. When my wife and I came back, it was devastation.
Несмотря на то, что война идет уже довольно давно, более 3 лет.
Even though the war has been going on for more than 3 years, we, Ukrainians, will never forget the first days. The days when everything changed in a single instant. People who still live in peace, may they never know war, cannot understand how everything can change in just one day, even in 1 hour. Everything you built, your home, your plans, your children's future, can vanish in a single moment.
On February 23rd, we lived our ordinary lives. For the 24th, we had ordinary plans to take the child to school. We had our regular work schedule, our rehearsals. We were working on a new play. But on the morning of February 24th, our lives changed forever. We didn't realize it at the time, but at 4 in the morning, when the Russian offensive on Kharkiv began, we felt perhaps every form of human destruction. Things one could never imagine, even in the worst nightmare. Grad rockets, tank shells, air bombs, all of it struck first at the city's ordinary residential areas. At ordinary children, elderly people, animals, it was horrific. But what finally broke us were the fighter jets, those machines of death flying above us, simply dropping bombs on peaceful civilians.
Первый, конечно, был ужас, когда мы принимали семьи.
The first real shock came when we began receiving families in Zaporizhia, where our main office is. The first who arrived from Berdyansk and Melitopol were still not fully aware of what had happened. Everyone had lost everything. Life had changed for all of them in a single second. Many families were separated. Children returned with strangers, with uncles, with aunts, lost somewhere along the road. One girl told me she ran home to pack her whole life into a single backpack. Her parents were away. Only her elderly grandmother was with her. She grabbed her, the cat, and a few things. She said, "I had 5 minutes to pack my entire life into one backpack." She was in such a hurry she forgot to put on shoes. It was 10 degrees below zero. When she ran out, she realized she was standing outside in just her socks. They escaped with a group of people, not knowing who was who, where the Russians were, where their own. She said, "We ended up right in the middle of a battle. We barely made it out alive." A 6-year-old boy told me a bomb had hit their house. He and his sister survived, crawled out from under the rubble, and tried to save their mother and baby brother. But they were already gone. I couldn't recover for hours after hearing that. Another boy said he and his father couldn't leave the house because their neighbor had been killed outside, and dogs were tearing at his body. Those were the stories we heard every day.
All through 2022, especially at the beginning, during the occupation and liberation, it was terrifying to watch how civilians suffered. The hardest part wasn't finding food or medicine. The hardest part was writing the lists of what was needed. And those lists didn't include supplies or drugs, but thousands of black bags for transporting and exhuming the dead from Irpin, Moshchun, Hostomel. That was hard. It was hard to organize evacuations from under the Irpin Bridge, to form convoys, to get our civilians out. It was hard to hear the chief doctor of the Irpin hospital say, "We're withdrawing. What should we do? We have 370 bodies." And so the decision was made to dig trenches and bury them all. It was hard to decide who should take the last evacuation bus, the civilians or the hospice patients. After deoccupation, it was hard to find any building in Makariv or Borodyanka to set up a medical aid point. There was nothing left. No schools, no hospitals, no community centers. We spent the entire day searching for any space where Doctors Without Borders could start helping. And yet, working was not frightening. No one felt fear. Maybe because, for the first time, we were watching everything around us as if it were a movie, a horror film being shot in real life.
All regions along the front lines remain under relentless shelling, and Kharkiv deserves a special mention.
Just 2 days ago, we came back from the Kharkiv region. The sound behind the window isn't rain, and it's not the wind in the trees. It's the air defense working, and shells detonating somewhere over Saltivka. People live with that sound now. They can tell what kind of shell it is and how far away it fell. They know when to step back from the window and when it's safe to stay. And still, they live. They've learned to survive by doing one thing, supporting each other.
It's true, Kharkiv lives under constant attacks by drones and glide bombs. We're just 40 kilometers from the Russian border, from Belgorod. Here, it explodes first, and then the sirens go off. A missile reaches us in only 40 seconds. We have no real shelters, except for basements. And still, we try to live, in spite of everything, because the city lives. The city keeps moving. If you stop and drown in pain, you'll lose your mind. And maybe that's exactly their goal, is to break us not only physically, but also in spirit. To make everyone walk around in mourning, in depression. And those states, they're very hard to come back from. So I'd say we survive. We find joy in simple things we once ignored. They decorate the city, make it festive, and then, boom, another night, another hit. By morning, everything's gone again. They strike the hospitals, the schools, the kindergartens, the landmarks. And here's my own story. Last March, a drone hit the building next to mine. In the morning, I saw what was left. People had died. An elderly woman was decapitated. The drone had flown straight into her apartment. It was an ordinary day. I was heading to work. But when I saw that scene, people digging through the debris near my son's school, where all the windows were shattered, I just froze. I couldn't go to work. I bought work gloves, came back, and started helping. No one cursed, no one argued, everyone was united.
When we arrived at the Kharkiv Blood Transfusion Center, they showed us all the rooms where donations were taken. They had moved everything, the equipment, the refrigerators for storing blood, into the basement. I asked, "How did you manage to carry all this down?" They said, "We don't even know. Somehow we moved everything in just one day." And being there, I couldn't help myself. I said, "Please, let me give at least one drop of my blood." So I donated, even though I was supposed to catch a train. It wasn't required. I just knew that every drop of blood could save someone's life. Later, they told me a story. The hospital's security guard, back in early 2022, had donated blood too. He went outside for a smoke and was wounded. He needed a transfusion. His own blood saved him. He had wanted to help someone else and ended up saving himself. Today, I've been working for 2 years as the director of the National Cancer Institute. And on the day when Akhmadet was hit, our walls shook. There's a kindergarten nearby, and just 150 to 200 meters away, another shell landed. Every building around us trembled. I immediately texted the minister, "Viktor Kirilovich, everything is shaking here. The cracks are spreading." I sent him a couple of photos. He replied, "Hold on. There's tragedy in Akhmadet."
When a Russian missile struck the children's hospital Akhmadet, we arrived at the scene with our film crew just 40 minutes later. What we saw there is almost impossible to describe. The hospital buildings, destroyed. It was the best children's hospital in Ukraine. The medical staff were trying to save what equipment remained. Rescuers and volunteers were digging through the rubble, searching for survivors and the dead. One moment I will never forget. During filming, I saw the body of a woman lying nearby. The police were conducting an investigation and asked me to serve as a witness. I signed the necessary documents. The woman turned out to be a doctor, a pediatrician, 30 years old. Her name was Svetlana Lukianchuk. A police officer held a sealed bag with her phone inside. It kept ringing. Most likely her family, her friends, still trying to reach her, to find out how she was doing. But she was already gone. That same day, in another district of Kiev, a missile strike hit another medical facility, the Asida Mother and Child Center and the private clinic Adonis. 9 people were killed there.
The children from Akhmadet were brought to our hospital. We also have a pediatric department. More than 30 children arrived that day, some of them bedridden. It was hard to look into their parents' eyes. The children, brave as ever, started playing almost immediately, watching TV, exploring the tablets we gave them. They seemed to adapt faster, but for the parents, it was much harder. Especially for the fathers. I'll never forget the eyes of one soldier who arrived an hour or two later. His child had been treated at Akhmadet. I have never seen such lost, broken eyes. A man fighting two wars, one on the battlefield and one for his child's life, against cancer. He stood there staring at the ruined hospital where his child was supposed to be saved. Those eyes, I still see them in my dreams. What emotions can one even feel when seeing the destroyed children's hospital, Akhmadet? For the last decade, we had been waiting for this. The best hospital in Ukraine, equipped with the most advanced medical technology. And then when we saw it in ruins, we didn't even know yet what was happening inside. When we arrived, we saw 100 children with IV stands. It was summer. They were sitting on the ground, on chairs brought outside, still receiving their infusions. Doctors looked lost, not understanding how to continue treatment for their patients. That confusion was written on every face. The doctors, the parents, everyone. We had to urgently organize the transportation of children. At the Cancer Institute, we set up 2 emergency reception points. Ambulances brought the children one after another. They didn't stay for even a minute. They were transferred on stretchers straight to the children's department on the 2nd floor. Within 1 hour, everything was ready. We didn't even know how many children were coming. We carried more than 50 beds and folding cots from the basement, one for each child and parent. We practically turned the building into a field hospital. What struck me most was how, within just an hour or two, so many people had gathered near Akhmadet. It wasn't a coincidence it happened on a sunny day. Perhaps they expected panic, that Kivans would flee, crowd the train station again. But no, people stopped and came closer. They had to close the area because there was literally no space to move. Rescuers passed bricks and debris from hand to hand, standing so tightly together that no one could step aside. It reminded me of the first days of the war, when no one knew what to do. Many of our colleagues said, We're staying. We hadn't received any instructions yet. We just knew we had to invent work ourselves. The first call was to donate blood. Scrolling back through those early Facebook and Instagram posts, the same message everywhere: donate blood. Hundreds of people stood in line. After 5 days, we had to ask them to stop. There were no more containers to store it. And now, just like then, people rushed to help. Someone brought bananas. Someone bottles of water. Everyone simply understood. The only thing they could do right now was lift another brick. Our people, they are truly unbreakable.
On July 8, 2024, Russia launched around 40 missiles at Kiev and other cities across Ukraine. In Kiev alone, about 140 buildings were damaged or destroyed. One of those buildings was a kindergarten. Thanks to the quick reaction of the kindergarten staff during the air raid alert, they managed to move all the children into the bomb shelter in time. Thank God, no one was injured. It's terrifying to imagine what could have happened if the children had remained inside the building.
Just like at the beginning of the war, the terror against civilians continues. Only the methods have changed. At first, it was mostly artillery fire, Grad systems, tornado launchers. Now, it seems their ammunition is running low. But the technology of killing has only improved. They began using more drones, not just simple ones, with explosives, but now equipped with thermobaric warheads, where even the two-wall rule no longer helps. People are truly living under constant threat, and surviving a drone strike today is almost impossible. Talks about ceasefire happen all the time, but each time Russia only increases the shelling, targeting civilians even more. With every passing month of this war, the danger to the civilian population only grows. It's getting worse and worse. For example, the missile strikes on Kryvyi Rih or on Kiev, especially in densely built urban areas where we often travel. Odessa, Mykolaiv, Kiev, even Zaporizhzhia. When missile attacks hit within city blocks, the echo makes every explosion feel 10 times stronger than it would in an open area. And the psychological pressure is enormous. Many families returned with their children, and those children now live in a state of chronic fear. My daughter, for instance, she jumps up and runs downstairs the moment she hears the alarm. We're being shelled every night. As soon as the kids go to bed around 10, it starts again. Missile attacks, combined with drones. During the recent G7 summit, when the world was supposed to be talking about peace, Russia did the opposite. That night was one of the heaviest attacks on Ukraine. It started around 9 p.m. and lasted until 9 in the morning. 12 hours of continuous bombardment. In total, the occupiers launched 32 missiles and 450 drones. In Kiev alone, 28 people were killed. not counting the wounded.
Speaking about what's happening in Kiev today, these nights, recently I saw an October calendar that showed only one day when Shaheds didn't fly. And that's horrifying. It's pure terror, the terror of civilians. Not everyone reacts the same way. Some people, like me, I sleep peacefully. I do something not very right. I turn off the air raid alert at night and sleep until morning. Because I must stay strong, I have to go to work. But there are people around me who spend the whole night sitting, fully dressed, with a packed bag beside them, waiting for the alert to end. And what happens now is even worse. The moment the alert ends, people undress, lie down to sleep, and 5 minutes later, it starts again. Each person has their own nervous system, their own threshold. And yet in the morning they get up, get ready, and go to work. As nurses, doctors, economists, accountants, lawyers. So tell me, isn't that terror?
During World War II, the Nazis bombed London and launched V-2 rockets at the city. Their goal was to break the nation's resistance, to make the British people pressure their government into surrender, to force them to accept peace on the enemy's terms. But it didn't work. Today, the Russian Federation uses the very same narratives and the very same methods. They intensify the bombardment of civilians with one purpose only: to break the resistance of our nation, to kill the hope within our people, to destroy the belief that peace and victory are still possible. They want the war to invade every part of Ukrainian life, to plant fear in every citizen, young and old. When children spend their entire school days in bomb shelters, when there's no quiet night after a day of attacks, when air raid sirens start at 9 in the evening and the bombing lasts until morning, people simply cannot rest. They cannot work fully. But I believe they have underestimated the strength of our nation. This will not destroy our faith, nor our hope for victory.
The weapons used to kill civilians in Kharkiv keep changing. That's true. And I could never have imagined, not even in a nightmare, that as a civilian woman, just an ordinary person, I would have to somehow distinguish one type of terror from another. Before, it was mostly S-300 missiles. Now Kharkiv is being hit with Molnia and Cab bombs. You sit in your apartment, boom, an explosion. You think, that was a cab, or maybe a drone. But it doesn't make it any easier because people are dying. Ordinary, peaceful people. And yet, in those horrific propaganda news reports, they still try to feed people the lie that they only target military sites. That's not true. The truth is, we live here as hostages. We see with our own eyes. Those missiles are flying straight into people's homes, onto the heads of civilians, of children.
This new year, I decided to celebrate with my mother. She's an elderly woman, and I stayed overnight at her place. At 7 in the morning on January 1st came the New Year greetings. The New Year came straight through the window. The blast wave blew it off the hinges, and cold air rushed in with the explosion. I had been sleeping in the children's room. Fortunately, my daughter is safe abroad now, so I stayed in her room that night. Thank God she wasn't there. The window blew open right above her bed. The building across the street was heavily damaged. Several explosions hit it. Sadly, an elderly couple, both teachers, were killed in the next building. Our neighborhood has many elderly residents. Panic broke out. It took a long time to calm my mother down. Just a few days before, there had been explosions in the city center too. A church was badly damaged. And unfortunately, we have already become used to this. Explosions happen constantly, and the terror of the civilian population has become almost a routine part of life.
But Kharkiv is trying to live. And what's most remarkable, so many schools have been rebuilt during this time. Even underground schools where children now study, live, and adapt, for them, this has already become normal. I try to remember my own childhood. We went to school on September 1st, a day of celebration. And now I open the new school year in a metro station in an underground school. I saw these tiny children, only 6 years old. It's such a mix of feelings. On one hand, it's a joyful moment, the first day of school. On the other, I look into their eyes and can't hold back tears. Because these little ones, just 6 years old, have already spent half their lives growing up in this war. And yet, they go to school. Their parents lead them by the hand. Yes, it's good that our city has found a way to protect them. But we cannot all live underground like moles. It shouldn't be this way.
We are doing everything possible to stop this war, at least within the borders where it is now. Of course, the dream is to restore our 1991 borders. We all hope that will come true. But today, the entire country, all of Ukraine, has united to stop this Russian aggression. In a way, we've become a buffer, because if Ukraine were to fall, I don't know how quickly Europe would be able to resist. The fact that we have been holding back this invasion for 4 years now, and that Russia has failed to achieve its goals, is already a powerful factor that restrains its future aggression. Not only have all our state institutions and the armed forces united, but ordinary civilians took up arms. Everyone defended their own home. Men, women, even children stood together. I think such patriotism is something rare. Not every nation is capable of it. In that sense, we are a unique people, and God willing, the war will not spread further. Because the stronger we stand here against Russian aggression, the less desire Russia will have to move on, to threaten the Baltics or Poland. I believe they have already begun to rethink their plans. We've seriously undermined their militaristic confidence, and perhaps now they will no longer have that same urge to attack.
и в будущем не будет у них такого желания нападать.
We will always be their buffer, but perhaps that is our fate, given where we are on the map.
I still don't fully understand why this war has lasted so long. When we were children, we studied the war of 1941 to 45, and even then I couldn't comprehend why the Second Front was opened only in 1943. I didn't understand it. And now I feel the same. I don't understand why, even today, we have to keep asking for help. Why societies, why world leaders still don't grasp that so much depends on their involvement, on their willingness to act. Because, unfortunately, today, much more depends on them than on us. When this will finally end, no one can say. If I could speak to them directly, I would say, "People, wake up. Today it is us. Tomorrow it could be you." Europe is very close, only 3 days walk away, as they say.